Good morning, folks. Tom Luziski here from the Sam Noble Museum. Welcome to Sam Noble Home, and welcome to the second edition of Tinker with Tom. So the windy outside, so no throwing. I didn't get the thunderstorms that we were anticipating, but still, let's move on ahead with making our indoor boomerangs. We're gonna make them, and then we're gonna go into another room that's a bit larger. We're going to try and throw them. So, if you happen to, we have on our website, in the link in the description here, we have a template that you can cut out. And if you don't have the template, that's okay, because all we're going to be doing is cutting out narrow rectangles that are 11.5 inches by 1.5 inches. So that's going to be really easy to do. Template can help with you lining them up in the centers. So, and as before, we're going to need scissors. We're going to need a stapler, and it's not just good for hooking together the paper or the cardboard into the boomerangs, but we're going to be using it when we're throwing it to adjust the weight on the boomerang. And one thing I didn't tell you is kind of handy to have is a marking device of some sort. So I prefer these little permanent pens. So let's get making stuff. Now a giant hand is going to change everything. So we've got our template here, and there's probably really no reason for you to see me cut out the template into these strips, but there you go. Just chop apart this thing and get your strip of template material there. Don't necessarily have to knock the corners off, kind of makes it easier for us to put it on our cereal box. So, cereal box, this is known as press board, and I think one of the things that you're going to find is, if you can, you try to find thicker press board. I found some of these things that could be the same brand of cereal, and some are much stiffer than others. So if you have a choice, pick some that are a little bit more stiff, a little bit more robust, and that's going to help us a bit down the road. So now that we've got our cereal box, and I've gone ahead and taken the step to cutting the two halves apart into these two pieces to make it easier to cut, we can trace our template out onto this. And what I find, this template is just, these are hard to trace. I'm not going to kid you, but I'm going to show you a trick that I do. Rather than trying to follow that thin line right there, I hold down the template and I just do some lines going off of the paper and onto the cardboard all the way around. And that is easier than trying to follow the line. It takes a steady hand. So let's finish this up. And once you've marked it, don't forget there's this section in the center right here, and that's where the boomerangs cross. And I'm going to make a little special mark right there because I'd like to complete that line across there once these things are cut out. In fact, I'm going to really reinforce that right there. Okay. All right, great. We have our template traced onto the piece, and now we can cut it out. I will tell you that once we get done with this, we'll just use this one as another template because it's easier to trace. Then we can just trace it as usual. Now when you're cutting this out, and I'm doing it on the back just because it's easier to see, you're going to want to be careful. If you're too rambunctious with this, what's going to happen is you're going to really bend or crease the cardboard, and I don't want to do that. So this first cut's always the hardest because you're distorting the two pieces there. And let's see, I'm going to cut it to length. Jesse Ngolia, James Burns, Jamie Burns, welcome aboard. And they're going to get faster after this. And watch me, I'm going to cut off some of that dross right there because it helps me keep this nice and flat and undistorted. I'm going to try to keep this as flat as possible. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. We're going to be able to take care of some more of that later. Now, in this box, you're going to find that you have, here, I'm going to shorten things up even more here. I've got my first blade, which is now going to become my template. I'm going to trace this out. And rather than making one boomerang today, we are just going to try to knock out a bunch of them. And the reason for that is you're going to get to experiment more down the road. You're going to get 5 blades out of each half of a box, if you got a big box. So what I'm going to do here, and say since these don't have to be perfect, say we're going to have several of these things, and you'll see the advantage to that pretty soon. So now I'm going to cut them all the length. This last one's a little skinny, so we're not, like I said, we're only going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th one here. Now you're going to get 5 more out of the other half of the box, and we can do that later, or you can do that later. But while we're at it here, I'm going to have some that we can, it'll make it easier for us to adjust them down the road, because boomerangs, they're not just the shape that's important. It's not even on later boomerangs, the airfoils that are important. It's also the twist and the bend of the wings. And so we're going to be able to adjust that. And because of variance in cardboard size and thickness, you might find to get your boomerang to work, you're going to have to maybe make modifications to it, like shorten the wings up, add weights to the wings. And if you decide to shorten the wings up, that's great, but you can always make them shorter. You can't make them longer. So that's why it's kind of great to have several boomerangs around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I cut another one here. So we'll have 3 boomerangs when we get done. You can just make one to start with, of course, but once we start throwing them, you're going to wish you had a few. So that's our basic rectangle shape cut out. Trying to see where my template went to. Oh well, that'll do. So on the template, you'll see that the corners are just kind of knocked off. That's not super important for how it flies, but if one of these things should circle back and hit you in the face, it might be better on your eye. If you have safety glasses, I'd wear them. I do. So we're going to knock those corners off, and they don't have to be super accurate. We're just knocking the corners off. I might be doing this a little quicker than some of you in our audience there, but you know, this is something that I do quite a bit of and kind of motors along. All of us are gonna, during these projects we're gonna be doing here, we're gonna be doing some things that we've never done before, and we're gonna get better at it. And we're gonna do some things that we have done before, and you know what? We're gonna get better at those too. So 2, 4, 6. And here's the first one I made here. So we have enough for 3 boomerangs here, done very quickly, and see how much time has elapsed here. Liz Foster from Dallas. Hey, Jessica. All right. So we've got a bunch of wings here because we're going to make ourselves a fleet of boomerangs. Here's the original one that we did. And what I want to do is, to make this easier to line up on the centers, we're going to make some marks there, help us line them up. We'll do that in all the parts. Just a couple of tick marks will work. There's many different designs of indoor boomerangs, and some are more complicated than others. This is probably by far one of the easiest ones to do. And we're going to make a few others, and then we're going to make some outdoor boomerangs. The principles are pretty much all the same on these, whether you're throwing indoors or outdoors. And so we're still going to learn a lot. The nice thing about these boomerangs is they are ambidextrous boomerangs, meaning you can use them either right-handed or left-handed. So let's assemble. Easy peasy. Line them up. We have our marks on both boomerangs. We want like a nice in the center and a 90-degree angle here. Then we take our stapler and 1, 2, and through, and you have made your first boomerang. Now, the next thing that's going to be important for your throwing your boomerang is you're going to want to tune the boomerang. And we'll talk about tuning here before we go in the living room, though we'll be doing some of that there too. And to tune these is what we call bowl tuning. And you're imagining, hey Sue, you're imagining that your boomerang is sitting in the bottom of a shallow bowl. And with the cereal box, you've got the unprinted side, and you've got the printed side, and you're going to find that the printed side just kind of naturally wants to bow upward. So you're kind of pinching your boomerang and rubbing it along its length right there to just very lightly curl the ends of the boomerang up. The thinking or the principle is this, is the deeper the bowl, the higher the boomerang flies and the shorter distance it goes out. The flatter the bowl, it flies less high and it goes out further. Just imagine the shape of the bowl and how, you know, you're inside a giant sphere throwing, and if your sphere is only, 4 feet around, and that's what the bowl represents, that's about how far your boomerang's gonna go. The flatter it is, the larger the sphere and the larger, longer your range is. So, that's our first one. Let's knock together the other three real quick and then we'll go in the living room. So, once again, line them up, crisscross applesauce. Two's plenty. You put more than that in your boomerang, you're adding unnecessary weight. How boomerangs work is a balance of many things. It's a balance of, like in all things flying, you've got the lift to weight ratio. If something's too heavy, it doesn't want to fly. If it's too light, it's not going to want to spin and go around. So here we are. We've got 3 boomerangs ready to give a try. We're going to head into the living room. I'm going to detach my phone from this mount and put it on another one. But what you're going to need to take into the living room with you is the stapler and the pair of scissors. So, well done. Good job. And hopefully no one gets motion sick much here. So we are going to go into the other room. Let's see if I can carry all this stuff without dropping it on my toes. So, I will warn you that at some point during these proceedings, you may encounter a cat, or 2, or maybe 3, or 4. We'll probably be lucky to see 1. They're all kind of napping right now. So, let me put this in the mount over here. A little brighter room. Hopefully things will show up nice in here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the ceiling fan off, because if I can figure out how to do that, because these will totally mess us up. Okay, so I'm going to put you right here. There we go. Oh, we'll see how that works. All right, so pick one of the 3 boomerangs that you have. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to throw it first, and then we're going to go sit over there on the floor. Where you're doing it's kind of important. Pick the biggest room that you can and the highest ceilings. I usually sit on the floor because that gives you more sky for your boomerang to go up into, because they kind of tend to sweep up and come back down. They don't necessarily go right around in a straight circle. So, much room as you can. Turn off any ceiling fans. My ceiling fan's still going. One moment. All right, so you check the tune on your boomerang. Now, for you right-handed folks out there, there are left-handed and the right-handed boomerangs, but as I'd said before, these are ambidextrous boomerangs. I'd give my right arm to be ambidextrous. A right-handed thrower, and I apologize, I think Facebook Live here mirrors my image, so I could be talking right, and you're looking at my image, you might be going, well, he's using his left hand. We're going to figure that out. So, whoever's throwing, how you pinch your boomerang, it's not like this, but I'm like giving the thumbs up sign, and it's this pinch right here. Their boomerang's kind of like right straight up in the air. You know, this is like a 90-degree angle right here. The bowl is towards my face, whether I'm a right-handed thrower or a left-handed thrower. That bowl, those wingtips are pointing up towards my face, okay? So, these throws inside especially, it's not going to be about arm, it's going to be about spin. So the boomerang's not going forward really fast, it's going forward a little bit, but we need a lot of spin to make this work. And so between thumb and forefinger, and what a lot of people describe it as is you're knocking. You're just knocking on a door. So it's not a lot of arm, but spin, okay? So I'm gonna take our boomerangs and witness a cat. That's magic. She shall go to her morning spot. This is her 10:30 appointment with that window and whatever birds and squirrels are outside of it. So let's go over there, or I'll go over there, sit on the floor, and we're gonna run through a bunch of this stuff. Because I'm gonna tell you, you're not gonna catch the first one, and if you do, that's amazing. But what we're gonna find is we're going to need to make some adjustments to these to get them to work and get them consistent. And then the fun really begins. But to me, the fun's in the making. I like a challenge. So, let's see. And my fan's still spinning around. Okay, I think it's done now. I even have a little air conditioning unit over here that blows out wind, and I am going to shut that off. So we want some nice still air. When we get outside, the wind is a very important thing, and where it's coming from and how you're throwing your boomerang relative to it. Indoors, we don't have to worry about that. Now I'm looking for the boomerangs I set down. That's one thing about this lovely carpet, is it camouflages just about everything that you set on it. So, crisscross applesauce. I got my staple. I got scissors. I got a cat optional. So I've got my tune. She's a pretty good boomerang catcher too, so we'll see how we do. So when I was talking earlier about the cardboard and the thickness of your cardboard, if it's too floppy, the larger your boomerang is, it gets even floppier. So one way to guard against that is we can maybe chop some of the wing off. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to throw a boomerang just as is with no modifications to it, and we see how we do. All right, got my thumbs up sign, I got my pinch. The boomerang is right straight up and down, and I'm kind of aiming at a spot off on the horizon. And this is a great place to start. As we go, you might find that you need to aim a bit higher into the sky or a bit lower in the sky to make it work. Or maybe you've got to what we call lay the boomerang over a bit, tilt the bowl away from you, and that'll make it climb higher and come down. But the great starting place is right straight up and down and aiming at the horizon, and you make your adjustments from there. Let's see how we do. Don't get too excited. Not bad for the first time out of the gate here. Landing a little bit to my left. What can I do about that? And it's a pretty short range. Not too shabby. I've surprised myself. I almost never get one right out of the box. So now that we've caught one, let's mess around with some of the things that we can do to it. So I'm going to see if I can get get it to go out further. And there's a couple of ways I can do that. A boomerang in many ways is like a top, and I was saying spin was important. The heavier it is, the longer it spins. And so what can we do to give it some more spin rotation or rotational inertia? An object at rest likes to stay at rest, an object in motion likes to stay in motion. Rotational inertia is that spinning inertia. So what I'm going to do is take my stapler here, and in the end of each wing, I'm going to pop in one staple. And we're going to see how that changes each time. Now I've added a little bit of mass to the ring on the outside, and that's where it's going to make the difference. If I add my mass to the center, it's not as effective as adding it to the edge. If I add it to the center, it'll just go out straight and not come back. I want this to spin more. So let's see how we do. Different. I'm going to try a couple more staples in that. And that's what's nice about having a stapler for all indoor boomerangs that you can be making, is this just puts onto your boomerang just a little bit. I couldn't tell you how much a staple weighs, but it's not much. It's a lot less than a paper clip. Paper clips are a little too heavy. Well, you see that went out quite a bit farther. I'm gonna knock on the door, knocking on the door. And let's keep adding weight to this thing because I want to see how ridiculous it gets. And that's the nice thing about these boomerangs, is you can make a whole stack of them. You will get 6 out of them out of one box of cereal. And all of us in this, we're going to be making mistakes, and things aren't going to work the way we plan all the time for you or for me. But that's what humans do. It's not working, what can we do? Better spin retention. Let's see what happens when we take a boomerang and I'm going to cut off of it. Not a lot, probably like 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to cut a little off of the wing, and I'll use that spot as my template to cut off all 4 wings. Whoops, I actually cut one wing off twice. Interesting. I don't know what that's going to do. Let's roll with that. I'm going to cut off. I shortened up 3 wings, one of them more than I should, and then I'm going to go real quick and take off the corners. I'm wearing glasses. Throughout this series, if there's one piece of equipment that I strongly urge anyone gets, and it's something I practice, and as head of exhibits, it's one of the things I bug my guys about, is we need to wear eye protection. You only have 2, last I heard. So this is a boomerang. It's not even symmetrical anymore. Every wing's a different length. I don't know what's going to happen. Interesting, not terrible. I'm going to add some weight to the end of each wing. Especially, I'm going to add it on to the shorter wings. In fact, I'm going to put an extra little bit on that wing. All right, here we go, knocking on the door. Now that was interesting. Flew pretty high, but had some pretty good retention. And the cat's gonna get it. Yes! I think I can do something with this still. I'm gonna hold it even more upright. So, we learned something pretty interesting there. I'm actually gonna throw it from a wing that's not so floppy. Boomerangs don't even have to be symmetrical in any way. They can be, as you can see, this one has a different length of wing for each, and it still works pretty great. Maybe it's not rotating right on this center anymore. As it spins around, it's probably doing something like this, but it still works. So this is a great way to get started in boomerangs. And right now, boomerangs is an amazing sport because all you need is you and a boomerang. You're like I've said in the past, you are a quarterback throwing a pass to yourself. So what can you do beyond this? Okay, I've made this. There's other plans. You can do that, but you can also play around with this design. How can you optimize this design? Can you make it so you throw and you catch and you don't even have to move? Can you aim for another target, put a paper plate on the ground and throw it and try to get it to land on that? A word about catching. A friend of mine was really fond of saying, don't be an alligator. When you're catching your boomerang, you're essentially trying to get it to land on your hand so you can move your hand underneath it. You're trying to get it underneath the boomerang lands on it, and then you trap it with your other hand. And that's one thing with these little light boomerangs is be careful catching them, only because you can really mess them up. You know, you can crush them, you can bend a wing, but guess what? You've got 2 more boomerangs. If you made them all out of the box, you've got 6 boomerangs. Experiment, try different things, try different amounts of weight on the end of each wing. How does that change how it flies? There's a group of people in Europe that during the isolation have been issuing challenges, like standing up a pencil on a table and having just a single hole, and not a big one. I think they're doing a 1 centimeter hole in the center of the boomerang and throwing it and trying to get it land right on top of that pencil. So they're doing a lot of tweaking to that boomerang and finding the sweet spot where it climbs and just floats down. And many people have met this challenge, and it's taken them a few hundred times to do it, but they did it. And they started issuing even more challenges, and maybe we'll look at some of those in coming episodes, okay? So that's about it. If there's somebody has questions, I'm gonna see if I can't, this is a new medium for me, so I'm still figuring this out. I'm going to see if I've got some questions here. No questions yet. So, cereal boxes, they tend to be a bit heavier. There's soda boxes. There's all sorts of pressboard boxes. The corrugated boxes, we can do a little different boomerang with that. You can practically make the same boomerang. You just cut along the corrugates to make the blades. And I want to see what you've done. If you make one of these things, I want to see that you've done it. I'd like to see you catch it. Show us what you've done. Hashtag Sam Noble Home. Take a photo, take a video. I want to see it. We all want to see it. So I think I'm going to sign off for now. And next week at 10 o'clock, I'd love to see you. We'll see what we're going to be doing. If the weather's great, maybe we'll go outside. And until that point in time, please make stuff. Take care, everybody.